Hey, what is going on? You are listening to Abyssgazing, a horror podcast where we celebrate all things spooky and mental health.
I'm your co-host, Mark, still.
I'm your co-host, Billy, and Mark is bald, and you got the two bald, bearded guys, me and Josh.
Damn it.
And I am the tit-twisting co-host, middle of nowhere, Mexico.
Wait,
Josh.
shouldn't I be the tit twisting? Because I'm the one that has them.
Look, we all have boobs, okay? Whether or not some of them are big, some of them are small. Boobs is boobs.
I'm fat.
And we're joined by Zambies, who picked,
Oh yeah.
has picked the final pick for Surprise September. Welcome back.
Is she even considered a guest at this point?
I don't know. What is this, like my fifth time back?
Until
Yeah.
oh, Mark, you got to send her the jacket. She's crossed over.
Yeah, I don't know. You guys keep letting me come back, so I'm like that stray cat you fed, and every once in a while it follows you home, and then just makes itself comfy.
That's
And
how
I'm-
I started.
I'm pretty sure this whole thing started because somebody raided your stream and dropped me off there one day.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. And here you are being harassed by us.
Yeah.
Yay.
Ha, surprise! I'm the one harassing you. I picked the movie.
Which
What?
is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this last week on the last episode. Is this month turned out to be like surprisingly like heavy thematically and like conversationally, and so getting to end on this was like a nice treat. Where I was like watching this on Saturday and I was like, cool, a break for my mental health.
Yeah. We did have some fairly dramatic and stressful movies up until this point.
So go check out our episodes on Speak No Evil from 2022, The Human Centipede 2, and Immaculate from earlier this year. But Zambies, you being our guest, what did you bring us?
Well, it had to be a horror movie, but also my favorite genre is comedy. And to me, this film is lightly a comedy. So I wanted to throw that in there for you guys. Hopefully it made you giggle a little bit. And I brought you From Dusk Till Dawn.
Just for correction and for the record, we're talking about the movie, none of the sequels, not the TV show. The
No.
same name.
No. The original.
The OG, which God damn, I mean, what a storm this movie is with its cast, its crew, its special effects department, the story, like just everything about this is like just absolutely insane. Like perfect storm. You cannot recreate this.
Have you seen it before? Watching it this time?
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw it during the pandemic. I did a deep
Wait,
dive on
wait,
Robert
wait,
Rodriguez.
Wait, that's the first time you saw it was during the pandemic?
Really?
Yes, Mark,
Really?
we've established this.
We did?
Yes.
I didn't remember establishing that.
Huh.
Because
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I saw this movie at a young age, an age that I probably shouldn't have watched it. It was the first time I saw it. And then I hadn't seen it in a while. So watching it again was quite the refresher.
Isn't that how most of us got our introduction to horror movies?
Yeah, probably.
No.
Yeah.
It explains a lot.
This is one of those movies that I was actually babysitting, and I wasn't supposed to watch the movies, and they had HBO, so I watched this movie. It popped up there. I'm like, ooh, a vampire movie. Then I got to see the whole thing, and I'm like, sweet.
I don't remember where I first saw it, but I've seen it a couple times through the years, and I keep wondering why it's not in my collection.
It's in mine.
It is in my
babysitting
collection.
myself when I watched it. So- going into it. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, going into it, I had no idea it was a vampire movie.
Neither did I.
I didn't know anything about it.
Which is
I just turned
hilarious
it on.
because if you just watch it, you have no idea until like an hour into the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like this is one of those movies that just takes this like really dark turn, and it never looks back, completely transforms itself. And one of the things that I've noticed as I've matured in my like film watching experience is that it is a true like mastery of storytelling if you can like completely switch genres, because when you start watching this movie, and here's my surprise for you guys. So I have a surprise for Surprise September. So from our sister show on Brilliant but Lazy, Joshua Howell, ladies and gentlemen, if he just decides to join.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of,
Hello,
No.
you're welcome to a recording already.
he's kind of your recording.
You not only surprised September us, you surprised September him.
You surprised everything, even the technology, so it won't work now.
No, but like what I was saying is like this movie just is a complete like magistry of the way that it switches genres, because it starts out as like this very, very typical heist movie, with the the twists and the turns that you kind of expect from that type of genre. And then like by the time you get to Mexico, you're just kind of like thinking, okay, it's going to be kind of like a chill, where are we going? And then it's like, oh no, we're actually in vampire territory.
Yeah, it definitely flipped the script. I love it because it's actually kind of like two movies, like in
Yeah.
one, where you're watching, and then you get into this crazy shit that's happening, and then you kind of forget that there was the whole front half of the movie and the heist until the end when they wrap it up. But it was a really good like transition to where some movies where they take a turn kind of feels discombobulated. And this just like, because it was so well done, you don't like, you're not lacking because you're not watching a heist movie anymore. You're like, I'm down for the ride.
Well, the transition is the Salma-Hayek dance.
Yeah.
So they kind of discombobulate you with that and then turn it into another movie.
Which I feel like it's too early in the podcast to kind of get talking about that.
Yeah, we're going to hold on that because I know what you're going to talk about. I forgot about that when I picked this film.
But Josh, I don't know if you're still having tech issues, but this is one of your favorite films. So when we decided to do this, I was like, I'm going to surprise September my co-hosts and not tell them. It's the first time that it's ever happened in over 100 episodes. But welcome to Abyss Gazing. Welcome back, rather.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Is it all working?
Yeah. So
All
what
right.
is
Hi, Josh.
what is
Hey.
your relationship with this movie?
You know what? This was just something I came across. I didn't see it when it came out. What year did it come out? This was this is
96.
96. So
Yeah.
I was like 10, so definitely not allowed to watch this. I think I'm trying to remember how I came across it. I think I was in high school, and a friend of mine had shown me Blade 2, and I was like, "This is awesome!" I love vampire movies, and I love gore, and I love action. And he's like, "Oh, if you like this, let me show you this other film." And then he showed me From Dusk Till Dawn, and I loved it. I didn't know what to expect. Like you guys were talking about, I love the turn in the beginning, and everything down to the soundtrack. I've got this thing on vinyl. It's fantastic.
I want to make a comparison real quick that might seem a little bit odd, but when you look at Wes Craven's career and you look at New Nightmare, it was kind of this like blueprint for Scream. And when you look at this, even though it has different writers, this definitely feels stylistically almost kind of like it has a same tone as, and even like the way that it's casted, even with The Faculty, which is the follow-up to this film from Robert Rodriguez. And these were just two movies that presented themselves as one thing, completely turned into genre pieces, had two of the best up-and-coming writers at the time. Kevin Williamson, fresh off Scream. Then for this one, you have Tarantino fresh off of Pulp Fiction, and these are just two examples. I talked about this earlier of just being a perfect lightning in a bottle, and I don't think you recapture that. Now, I haven't seen the series, I haven't seen the sequels to either one of these two From Dusk Till Dawn, so I don't know if they're able to recapture those or if it's just kind of dumb fun. But I think this is such an interesting point in cinema history when you're talking about either one of these two films.
I think that George Clooney's character is probably one of his best acting ever. It was just crazy because it's like early in his career, but he nailed that character. Like I honestly, like you felt for him. He had like his little bit of development for the most part. He was pretty solid, consistent, like teetering that line between bad guy and good guy. But like the way, I don't know, the way he portrayed that character was like flawless for me.
I also love the juxtaposition between him and Tarantino's character in this one.
Yeah.
Probably one of the greatest examples of that is when he comes back from getting the burgers after the hostage.
God. Yeah,
and
that
he
was
says,
so hard.
He says the line, "I'm a professional thief. I do not kill when I do not need to kill, and I do not rape women. That's not how it's done." And so you kind of have this like juxtapose, like here he has like Seth is like the really calm, cool one. Then on the flip side of that, you have Richie that is just like very blood hungry, very just like thirsty for everything that like life has to offer, whether that's violence or rape or women or money. Like he just wants to embrace everything.
Well, he comes across as kind of psychotic too.
I was just gonna say he's insane.
You see him meeting what's her name? Fucking names. They avoid me.
Well, you gotta Kate?
Yeah.
Kate the girl.
That's amazing. How could I forget?
Hey, I'm gonna tell your wife on you now. You got yourself in trouble. You can't even remember your wife's name.
But still, he sees her in the RV and is imagining her saying stuff to him.
Not even the RV. She walked into the hotel and he imagined she said, "Do you want to eat mine? I'm not going to finish that."
That's
I mean, I was leaving it alone because I don't know how old she was in that scene. So
that's fair.
That's why I was like, I'm leaving it alone, even though she's at that time I was about the same age. So
if you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us.
I love the dynamic between the two. It's this similar dynamic in Hell or High Water. Just that brothers. One is kind of the straight guy, kind of the more reliable, and the other one is just volatile, and you can't trust him. And just you think at the beginning it's going to be this movie about this family trying to survive these two guys, and you don't really know how to feel about Batman because he's the brother of Quentin Tarantino, and is he going to protect this family, or is he going to protect his brother? And then that twist that there's something worse out there than this psycho, and you got to root for the normal people now versus the vampires. I love that twist. It's fantastic. And it's not the only movie that's done that. Like you said, Josh, there's other films like Fresh and other ones that they start off as one thing. Like Fresh is this romantic comedy in the beginning and then turns into this horrible other genre mid film. And I love it when films do that, and when they successfully keep that from the viewer up until the pivotal point.
And Batman came out after this one, didn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. This is young George Clooney.
Yeah. This Batman came out after this one because I think this is one of the ones that may have helped him get Batman.
Yeah.
Well, so also keep in mind in the timeline of his career that ER was like a big thing in around this time, and that was what inevitably gave him got him the role of Batman. It wasn't films like this, but it was like the popularity and like the fact that he was like a heartthrob. Because I believe, if I remember correctly, that this was the actual follow-up for him to Batman. Batman Robin was the follow-up to this movie.
Yeah, Batman Robin was 97. This one was 96.
Am I wrong? Because I had heard a reference to Dusk Till Dawn where I seen some stuff talking about Fede Alvarez wants to do an Aliens vs. Predator movie with Trachtenberg where they each do half the movie. And they were talking about Dusk Till Dawn. Half of it was done by Quentin Tarantino and half of it was done by Rodriguez.
So that I don't know. I do know that this movie, again, going to that perfect storm effect, this movie was conceived by Alex Kurtzman, who has a lot of fame from doing practical effects alongside Greg Nicotero and his people. Tarantino was the one.
I thought Savini was the special effects artist on this, who was also in it.
So he is, but Nicotero also did this one as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Savini was what? Sex Machine?
Yes. I love also how
I
he
love him
says
so
it
much.
so casually when he introduces himself to Katie. Just goes, "Oh yeah, hi, Sex Machine."
Okay, I had a weird. Someone's got to know this. I looked at him and I was like, he reminded me so much of the dude from the Buffy film that was a vampire too.
Okay. Yeah,
I know which
it's
one you're
not the
talking
same
about.
guy. I know
you
that.
saw me looking it up.
He had the same, he reminds, that character is just really, really similar in my mind. Sex Machine, and then the guy that Buffy stabs where he goes,
Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah.
That's the same makeup, that whole vibe was those two characters, put them next to each other, and they're like siblings.
I mean, that was an epic death scene, though.
That is probably one of the best scenes.
Yeah.
Also, I want a crotch gun so bad.
Yeah, crotch gun. Yes.
The crotch gun is fucking amazing.
And the fact that that's his introduction into this movie is nothing short of incredible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who brings a knife to a crotch gun fight?
Not only that, he whips the beer to grab it from him and then shows him the crotch gun so he doesn't mess with him. I'm like, yeah, what are you going to do?
Which is so, I feel like turns what we normally see from that stuff on its head, because normally it's a female that you see kind of whipping that around.
It is.
B, you don't really see that stuff like that outside of Westerns. That's a really interesting choice that they made.
Well, his name is Sex Machine, and he has a lot of leather and a crotch pistol. Yeah. He's obviously into BDSM. which they would
And
be into
and
with.
it's
So
arm
I mean,
stuff,
it's
and
he turns and opens.
he's a male dominatrix.
Turns and opens a gateway to Pinhead.
well,
yeah,
I got
he's definitely one of the better characters in the movie, even though he's only got like 5 lines.
well, on the flip end of that, how much did they pay Cheech to be in this movie?
He fit. Okay, when I watched it the second time, I realized he played like 3 different roles.
I
Was it
did. I
3 or
said the
4?
same thing because I watched it last night and I was like, I forgot he was in this in 3 different spots.
Yeah, and
and
nobody
he has
says
one of the-
anything. It's like a D&D character scenario.
And I love his scene on the steps at the titty twister.
speech.
That speech was like one of my favorite things when I
How
was
many
younger.
times did he say pussy? How someone
it's-
needs a counter.
It's a lot because I was like, how many times? Like, how much did he get paid just to say the word like pussy and like multiple variations of it? Like, and it's not just human pussy. He's like, we got dog pussy, we got cow
chicken.
pussy, we got chicken pussy.
And the second one's a penny. If you can find it cheaper, fuck it.
Fuck yeah, that's the best line ever.
I'm sorry, that's one of my favorite lines, favorite scenes. Like I said, it's one of my favorite movies. This is one of the movies I actually like George Clooney in.
Yeah, I'm
Well-
not a huge fan of him, but this was a really good film. And I was waiting for Quentin Tarantino's character to die. Like immediately, I
Yeah.
was like, he has to die. Like that. I don't care what happens in the film, but as soon as he gets killed, then I'm happy.
So there were a lot of aspects between the makeup and the way they did some of the traditional effects that reminded me a lot of old school Evil Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it, like one thing I noticed that I didn't notice when I was younger, is they were cautious or paid attention to everything they did. When they first stabbed one of the guys that was a vampire, before we knew he was a vampire, they put the knife on the table. If you're not paying attention, you don't realize it's green blood. Not red.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I never caught that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Sex Machine was staring at it, wasn't he?
Yeah, think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
he noticed. Yeah.
Yeah, he noticed something.
So,
Josh, you had mentioned the
was it
Western
bad?
vibes to this. You know, this was in the middle of Rodriguez's El Mariachi trilogy, with Antonio Banderas. And I remember after watching this and then realizing it was the same director before they came out with Once Upon a Time in Mexico, I think I had like a fan fiction as a kid, just combining those two stories and like hoping that Rodriguez would bring Antonio Banderas into this world and merge the two. I think that would have been awesome, but didn't happen. Did not happen.
there's still Dusk Till Dawn 4 come out, right? You can do it still.
Yeah.
I would absolutely love that because that's like one of my favorite trilogies. That trilogy is freaking incredible. But I am curious if you can explain something to me, Josh, because I think you've seen the sequels to this one, right?
Oh God, if I have, I don't remember. I've seen the show, and I'm sure I've seen the sequels, but they are not memorable. But what's your question?
I just want to know how they brought Danny Trejo back for the sequel because he's unlike the floating heads for the second one, I think, with Robert Patrick. And I was like, but he dies.
I can't remember. I think it's just some regenerative vampire thing. The sequels sucked. I mean, the cat was out of the bag. They're just. I remember really hoping that it was gonna like expand on the lore, especially after that final, painting wide shot at the end of the movie. That's what you want. You want to expand on the lore. And I think I remember trying to watch the sequels at least twice in my life, and both times being disappointed and wishing I had watched something else. So I can't tell you anymore.
And you know I'm a completist. I try to watch all the movies. I turned 2 off and didn't even try to watch 3.
Right? They're just not well written. Now the show, on the other hand, was actually entertaining. It was it's not incredibly memorable either, but it was kind of like, it had not Vampire Diaries. What was the HBO show? True Blood. It kind of had True Blood vibes in terms of the writing and the expansion of it. And it kind of I remember getting vibes of that and vibes of like the Hannibal series in terms of how they told the story, but also weaved in other things. And I thought fans of the original movie would like the show, but yeah, the sequel movies are just not worth your time.
Yeah, I've heard the series is pretty good.
Yeah,
I have to, like, at first you look at the makeup and the like special effects of the characters that they turn the vampires into. I have to give kind of like some creative credit to the fact that they didn't just stick to bats, like because Salma-Hayek, snake, and then there was the rat creature and stuff, and that's all actually like in certain lore of vampires, they can shapeshift into other creatures. So it was kind of cool to see that. And I don't know so much about snakes, but I do know that rats are also pretty common along with bats. So.
Well, Bram Stoker's Dracula, they show him turn into kind of werewolf kind of beast.
Yeah,
and
they can do the
fall and split up into like a horde of rats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To go back to Zambi's point, though, I'm almost curious if that is something that comes from like Mexican or like Spanish lore.
Probably Aztec.
Or Aztec, yeah, because I mean,
definitely have the Aztec part of it, yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean that's with the tunnels and stuff. I
Yeah.
actually want to look that up now.
Mhm.
Because I love, like, for me, when movies hit on like mythology and like stuff like that, I geek out so hardcore, and it doesn't even like, even if the movie isn't as good, I rank it higher because of that, because they put the effort into like creating this like rich lore for it.
Mhm. That's what I wanted so much. As a kid, I grew up on Alien and Aliens, and I loved how Aliens expanded and you got more, and you brought in the space army and everything, and the space marines, and I desperately wanted that for a sequel to this movie. When you see the tunnels are actually a part of this gigantic Aztec pyramid, I wanted a sequel like that where you just brought in the big guns and went down in the tunnels and hunted him down. And maybe one day we'll get like somebody that wants to redo it. That's kind of the new thing now, to redo a sequel to a not just a remake, but this is the new number 2, or different headcanon or whatever.
They do the Halloween choose your own adventure.
No. If we got a sequel to this film, they would need to be a legacy sequel. I would love to see what happens to either Seth or why am I blanking? Kate. Like either one of those characters. I think it would be like really fascinating to kind of see how.
What if they meet up again?
I was going to say the sequel, they end up back together because they have to fight them again.
Mm-hmm.
You could do a legacy sequel, just like Jamie Lee Curtis came back again in Halloween and just wiped out, all of the other sequels. They were just like, forget about those. This is the new, sequel to Halloween, and it's just the same character in the future. I could see an older Kate, being dragged back down to Mexico and, exploring what happened and everything. That'd be fun.
That's right.
You are right. By the way, I looked it up, and in Mayan and Aztec cultures, vampires are snakes.
Oh, fascinating. Okay.
Going back to what Zambies was saying earlier about the snakes and everything, one of the lines Salma-Hayek had was to Seth, I'm not going to give you the full blood because you don't deserve it. You're going to be like my footstool or my pet, which I took it as making him like a dog or a rat or something like that, because he wouldn't have got the full blood to get the full vampire effect.
See,
I mean, but with Salma Hayek saying that to you, would you have said no?
I didn't say I would say no. I just said it was going back to her point. Look, you're
Tarantino's already willing to lick her feet, so he's
God. I would not have picked this film if I remembered the feet. I hate feet.
Mark has already pushed him out of the chair, and he's the one sitting there now, so it's all good.
All right.
She was gorgeous in this film, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. I
Flawless.
I texted Billy, and I was just like, man, she's been my celebrity crush for quite a while. She's
Same.
like almost like double my age, and she looks absolutely stunning.
Was this one of her first films? Like, I feel like or one of like first American exposures.
Yeah,
She did Desperado,
Yes.
and she did a few romantic comedies. I
That's
think
right. She
before
was a
this.
desperado. Yeah. Mhm.
She was incredible in that one too. But let's just go ahead and get it out of the way. Let's talk about the feet. Let's talk about the fact that Tarantino, now a known person that has a foot fetish, literally wrote for himself in the script, Salma Hayek has to put her foot in my mouth.
I'm wondering if he wrote that scene intentionally for that, or
One-
talked to
Hans for
100%.
Is there
Oh,
any
dude.
chance that he didn't? That makes
Yeah, right.
Wait a minute,
What?
hold on. He had full control of everything. Yes, he wrote that in.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
I
Yeah.
would like to point out something really weird. But I like when they looked at Kate's feet. I like that she had natural feet. Like she didn't have this manicure, pedicure. She had hair on her toes. Like it was
That's part of his fetish. I mean,
like
once upon a time in Hollywood, he loved Margot Robbie's dirty feet, and stuff like that. And he loves that. Oh my gosh, the
Oh,
dirtier
God, no.
the better. Yeah, can we
I'm
paint
not gonna
on
do
some
that
toe
to you.
fungus? Yeah, that is all about his. Yeah, that's what he's about. Mhm.
it just made the film feel more like real. Because sometimes when Hollywood's like, yeah, let's have those Amazon ladies who are an apocalyptic, but they're completely waxed. I'm like, no.
Mhm.
Yeah, I gotta imagine for like that scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that when he novelized that one, there's like an entire chapter just dedicated to her feet. That's my hypothesis.
Honestly, like I absolutely am repulsed by feet, but I would totally let her put her feet on me.
That's how you know it's true love.
So I want to go back to something that Billy said, because this is kind of be where I will pull the mental health aspect of it. So Mark, don't say I'm reaching here, because I am going to reach. I'm going to reach for the stars, and it's going to be awesome. Reaching. But yeah, so that scene that Billy talks about in particular, where he essentially, Hayek turns to Clooney and says that he's going to be like, the footstool. That almost kind of feels like it's kind of carrying just in hindsight, just kind of feels like it's carrying a little bit of like double meaning, to where it also kind of echoes with Harvey-Keitel's character journey and where he's coming from.
Mhm.
I know where you're going with this, and I agree.
So in the in the Bible, one of the earliest things is like that. It's in Genesis 3, I believe, but God basically says that Jesus would eventually crush the head of the serpent. And so it's that imagery, but it's reversed. And I think
never mind. I was not going with that.
Okay. Well then, that imagery is reversed. But
Surprised.
I think it's really interesting to have a character like Keitel's kind of bring some like deeper meaning and conversation to this world and this lore, where you have a pastor that is quite literally angry enough at God to walk away, and then sees the worst that humanity has to offer, and kind of has to literally struggles throughout that. And of course, I really respect the fact that he chose to walk away from God rather than kind of fake and kind of front that. And I think some of us in this conversation have also kind of done that same. And so just to kind of have that and be very real about that, especially as a father, like I don't think that's conversations that are had nearly enough, because it doesn't necessarily seems like when one parent loses the other, their spouse, like you don't really get to see a lot of grief or a lot of that breathing happen in front of the kids, because you gotta quote unquote be strong for the kids.
Very much so.
Billy knows.
Now, where were you going with this, Zambi?
That's what I was going to ask.
I was going with the fact that because she was saying, and he made the joke of like, no, I already had an ex-wife, I was feeling like he felt that because he is kind of always the one pushed down and having to clean up his brother's messes and having to like bear the burden of, you know, basically being maybe not so much a pet, but like lesser, because he has to put everything he wants the back burner, and he, you know, he's chasing all of these things, but he's constantly being pulled on a leash because he has to take care of his brother.
Mm-hmm.
Never feels like he really kind of has like a chance to really breathe himself.
Yeah.
He's one of those classic character types where we focus so much on the happiness of others that we also neglect our own happiness and our own mental health. And you know, I think early on in the film, when he comes back after the burgers, you know, we talked about the scene earlier, like that's the moment where Seth honestly should have left Richie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And but he stuck around because of that exact reason of what you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
He feels like, I don't know what their parent dynamic was or anything like that, but he feels a sense of responsibility that he has to be there for his brother. And if he's not the one cleaning up his messes, maybe his brother's worse. And so it's like, it's kind of, he's shoving that emotion where you kind of don't see him have much emotion from this traumatic event of witnessing what his brother just did, which is like the worst of the worst. And then turning, and every time he gets angry, though, it seems like he still has a lid on it. And because he's pushing everything deep inside and he's burying it, and because he has to keep the level head on for the both of them. So he can't really express too much but anger.
Yeah.
And my thing was their background stories also. Why was Seth, I mean, we know why he was in jail, but was it trying to take care of his brother? The only way he knew how was to be a thief so that they would have money to live on or something like that, because he can't trust his brother. He's got to take care of him. Again, goes back to, we don't know the dynamics of it. I may be reading into it, but at the same time, Richie goes to break him out, kind of makes me feel like he can't live without his brother because his brother's always been there to protect him.
It's a parasitic relationship.
Yeah.
And
Well, he also at a certain point in the movie starts to kind of treat Kate as either like a sibling or a daughter, and defending her, taking up for her with the vampires, defending her from the vampires, and helping her learn what needs to be done.
Defending her from her brother or his brother too, because he said, you know, he was like, don't.
So I have I like I said, I love the dynamic between the two, but I did wonder, have you guys seen Hell or High Water? I don't want to spoil that movie.
I don't think so.
Okay, it's a great movie with Chris Pine and I can't think of his brother, but it's a similar dynamic. One is the straight guy, one's the chaotic guy. But unlike other traditional movies where you find out that the chaotic guy is really bad later on, you're exposed to that with Richie really upfront with this. I wondered, was, you know, it's kind of typical Tarantino fashion. He loves to go to the extremes when he can. Was that maybe too much to show for that character right at the beginning, to where you just didn't like him, or did it work to be that extreme up front instead of kind of holding that to later?
I think putting another twist and having him hold off later wasn't totally necessary, because in my point of view, it made me invested in wanting to see the demise of this character. So I am hoping for that. So I am watching more because I will get like the sense of justice and a serotonin when he meets his demise.
So it kind of, while I was watching it last night, it kind of reminded me of the hotel scene in the second House of a Thousand Corpses. I can't remember the name of the movie, but that hotel scene there.
Devil's Rejects? Is that what it was?
Devil's Rejects.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if that scene, that hotel room scene, the way they did it, had an influence on the hotel scene in Devil's Rejects.
I could see that. Yeah.
It's possible. Also, the gentleman you're thinking of is named Ben Foster. Josh.
Yeah, Ben Foster, the fantastic Ben Foster. I suggest this movie. It's not a horror movie, but it's got a lot of similar vibes to this, just without the vampires. But it's when I rewatched this for this, I couldn't help but thinking of the shared dynamics. But yeah, I really like the idea of two characters like this that are linked, and they are, one does feel responsible for the other, and probably knows it'd be best to just leave him somewhere, or discard him, or even kill him, but can't bring himself to do it and feels responsible for him. And yeah, it was a great dynamic for these characters.
And I know Zambi said her favorite part was his demise. One of my favorite parts was the shower scene when he finally hit him.
Oh yeah, that was really good. And he doesn't tell his brother that he hit him. He's like, oh
no, he doesn't.
It's like you blacked out.
It was an accident. You blacked out. Are you okay?
Was there any? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just going back to something that you had previously said, of talking about how the Clooney character is always kind of contained and kind of like holds it down together. I think even looking at this from when it came out in '96 to where we are now in terms of conversation around men's mental health has greatly improved. And so that is like a great picture of what it looks like for, even to this day, like how society pictures men being when, so life kind of comes along and just throws them another curveball, or you have someone that you're constantly trying to root for and hope for, but yet at the same time, like, you just kind of circumstances keep changing or whatever happens, and it just keeps growing, and that lid and just keeps going down further and further, and until you find yourself at vampires. Which is mental health, metaphorically.
It's sad, and the only emotion like he shows is anger, which is like, why is that an acceptable emotion for men, not acceptable for women? It's like seen as a masculine one, and people are like, not to get all feminist, but when they say women are the emotional sex and we can't have positions of power because we would get emotional, and it's like, anger is an emotion. You are choosing just one emotion. That's the most volatile one.
Not to get into politics, but there's a funny interview where someone's like, why don't you want a woman president? And they're like, because they're emotional and they'll start wars and we don't want that. And then the interviewer was like, but haven't all wars been started by men? It's kind of an unavoidable truth.
Yeah.
There. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, if you want to get technical, there were quite a few queens that started wars.
Yeah.
Oh,
there definitely were.
No.
I will admit that, but mostly.
For sure.
But yeah, and you think about that though, like, even like, he obviously internally has a lot of trauma and needs help, but he still, I have to say, even though he is a criminal, like, even at the ending where he's like, I may be a bastard, but I'm not a fucking bastard, and he like tells Kate to go home, like, he has all the like power and opportunity to take advantage, and he doesn't, because he's a decent guy, even with like the lady, and he actually wanted to let her go. And he's like, he has an honor among thieves type of like traditional values. So you can't really like hate the character at all. He's the good guy, even if he's a bad guy.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.
I see the Quentin Tarantino writing in this more than anything else. I do see the elements where I feel like Quentin Tarantino's a fantastic writer, and he knows how to string along a story and bring different dynamics into it, especially if it's out of sync or if he's trying to hold something back. So I do see his writing in this, but I definitely see Rodriguez's directing. It's just I grew up on Spy Kids, and it doesn't matter if it's Spy Kids or this or Desperado or the Boba Fett series. I can recognize when Rodriguez is directing, and that's not always a good thing in my opinion, but I recognize his style. So I wonder what a movie like this would have been like if Quentin Tarantino had directed it. And same story, same script. I just kind of wonder how the visuals would have looked. And I always thought it would have been neat for them to team up again, but have Tarantino behind the camera to come back to this.
Probably more tits.
But he also has, he's a fantastic director, and his movies have a certain different cinematic flair than Rodriguez's does. So yeah.
Now see, you say that, and I could do the same thing with Sam Raimi. I can tell him he's got little things he does in movies when he directs, but you could tell it's a Sam Raimi movie.
For sure. Yeah.
That's why when Spider-Man first came out, I had my doubts that it was going to be good because it was directed by Sam Raimi. But that's what kind of got him big was Spider-Man.
Yep.
Yeah, it's what made him like a household name, because he circled around like cult audiences for a long time because of Evil Dead, because of Darkman. He's done a lot of films before Spider-Man, but Spider-Man was kind of the one that like made him break out into mainstream success.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, anytime I've shown this film to a couple friends over the years, and especially to friends that are just like, I'm freaking tired of vampire stuff. Like there was this huge boom with Vampire Diaries and True Blood and Twilight and everything, and it did get to the point where everything was kind of the same. It was if they're vampires, they're rich and they're gaudy and they're fantastic and everything like that. And whether it's in an action style movie like Underworld or something like there was that Ethan Hawke movie about
Daywalker.
Yes. And I love all those movies too, but anytime I'm like, you want to see a vampire movie that is different and that's not all pretty and that's definitely more of like just the kind of extreme and gross and just weird side of vampires, this is the one to show, because it's not what you think, and then when it does get into the vampire thing, it just keeps on getting more weird and more ridiculous. And I love it.
You're totally
that
right.
shit.
Yeah.
Vampires was like that too. It wasn't like the rest of them. It was, that was a cool one.
I want more hillbilly vampires, and I want like Amazon vampire. I want like that stuff. Like, can you imagine that? It's like The Hills Have Eyes, but vampires.
Oh yeah.
That I want a different story. I love vampires. I will watch every film, whether it's good or bad. They're like one of my favorite creatures. And you're right, though. We're back in another vampire like renaissance right now. Vampires are in again. So we've like taken that shift. Like Twilight made it. I hate that film. I hate everything about that. But like you take that, and that was a big boom, and we had all those shows. Watched all of them. And now we're kind of getting back into there's more vampire and witch era stuff happening.
Because it's a great theme. I've got a vampire book in the works. I can't help it. I want to be a part of that. It's just, it's fun. It's a fun storyline. And I've seen every Dracula movie to exist, including Dracula 2000. And I'm still excited for Nosferatu coming out. It does not get boring to me. It's you just hope the next one is as good as the last one you loved, and it's fun. So any version of it for sure.
Check out Was it John Carpenter that did vampires?
Yeah, he did.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That
Oh, yeah.
was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It had the
um,
guy. It had the guy that played Silver, the bad guy in Karate Kid 3, as the main
Yep.
vampire. That's
Yep.
what was always trippy to me. It was
Mhm.
like he's gonna karate kick somebody's face off. And he never did, and I was disappointed.
That would have been
Spoiler.
a crossover for sure. Yeah.
Now we need space vampires.
They did that.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure
And
they did.
Coolio is in it.
That's
What?
right. That's right.
Wait, no, I do remember this. Oh
It
my
was
god.
on Mars, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was on a spaceship.
What was that called?
No.
It
Mars
was
No,
a Dracula
Josh, you're
3000.
thinking about Ghosts of Mars.
Yeah, you're
I am
Ghost
thinking
of
about
Mars.
Ghost of Mars, yeah.
That's not
I
vampires. Yeah.
No, it's not.
I think it's like Dracula 3000 or
Yep,
something
Dracula 3000.
Okay, I
like that. And
actually.
it's got Dana D'Errico, who was big in the D'Errico, whatever her name was.
Mhm.
Back
Oh,
from
it's got Casper Van Dien from Starship Troopers. That's right. I forgot about that. That's right.
I
Yep.
haven't seen this. I
Oh,
didn't
it's
know
horrible.
it existed.
It's
Yeah,
horrible.
you're not missing out.
It looks horrible.
It's horribly fun.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh my
Coolio's in
Just
it.
go to Google Images and you see a still of Coolio with red eyes and vampires biting someone's neck, and it looks like the most ridiculous, terrible death.
It followed the trope of what can we do next in this franchise? Take it to space. Doesn't matter if it's
But
mist or
he's still dressed
Jason.
like a normal vampire, though. No, I want cyberpunk meets vampires.
That
Well,
would
get on that.
probably
Get on it.
be. I think the closest you'll get to that is Ultraviolet.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
I'm sure there's tons of them out there, but that doesn't mean maybe you could write the next fantastic vampire space saga.
There you go, Mark.
I'm not a
Great.
writer. I'm an artist. I
Hey,
can paint the pictures.
Stephanie
I can illustrate
Myers
it.
is not a writer, but she wrote Twilight, and she's a billionaire because of it. So let's be honest with ourselves here.
Yeah.
Just
I don't think I
making
want the money
awful.
that bad to
Okay.
terrorize the planet with another horrible franchise.
Cult, man. You know.
Hmm.
Yes.
Well, I think that's. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about, or
Yes, the one thing I hated in the film.
there's
And
a.
It wasn't Salma Hayek's foot.
No. It was the fact that I know why they did it for cinematic purposes.
Okay.
But Frost got bit and turned within less than 5 minutes, and everybody else, it took a while to get them to turn. So why,
Yeah.
what? Like, I
And-
know why you did it. You had to get that cool shot of him turning with the bats and back. It was an awesome shot. I give you that. But like him turning literally right after he got bit is like out of character and everything.
Yeah, and building on that is Sex Machine was running at him, and he turned and he was fine. And Frost turned back after he threw Sex Machine, and that's when he had turned. I'm like, really? That's like the one scene that's like, that was so quick that compared to the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this movie was super realistic and consistent.
You know, wait a minute. We've been talking about all kinds of vampire movies. I want to point out the fact that they actually made fun of that in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
how do we kill vampires? And people start naming stuff, and they're like, do you know anything outside of what you've seen in like movies?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And we're naming movies. I'm like, that's hilarious.
And they said from dusk till dawn twice in the beginning and the end of the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess my only question to you guys would be, if you knew that this is what happens at the Titty Twister, would you still go there during the day and just make sure to leave before it
Is
gets
Salma Hayek
dark?
there?
Because
Yes.
I mean, yes,
Yes.
you go to
Oh,
this
only way.
place looks like a hell of a good time.
Well,
Could
I get to
you
meet
know,
Cheech.
could you bring
and her,
yourself to
I'm
go
good.
as long as you left before
Mhm.
dusk?
But they only invite bikers and truck
And
drivers.
truckers.
Mm,
So
mhm.
we do need to. We do
Yeah,
have
but
homework
I have a
before we
pussy,
go.
so I think I can get through the door.
I mean,
Wait a minute,
I'm
he
pretty
might
sure that's
try to
usually
sell
the
it, the
exception.
dome.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody else can, cosplay as Sons of Anarchy and, get in and, yeah.
Boom, boom.
Oh, God. Oh, wait, I do have to say one more thing. Absolute best part of the film when they use that guy as a guitar.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh yes.
That's
Ah,
right.
Yeah. One of the best
Fantastic.
sequences in this movie.
Fantastic.
Did you
Again,
act-
just
did you-
gets wild.
Did you actually notice the composition of the guitar?
No.
Isn't
Not
his
really, I
head
did.
in his butt or something like that? Or
No, the head is like the bridge.
yeah.
But the neck of the guitar is the person's leg stuffed up his ass.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
I will say though that like everything from like, not to say that this isn't a bad heist movie, but everything from the Switch onwards is just absolutely like perfect.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Just bonkers. Loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pedal and metal. Fantastic.
Yeah. It once it just kind of hits that speed, it just never gives up. And I absolutely love that. Also, like one of the best sequences in this is like after what Billy was talking about, they were like looking around at like what they could use, and Harvey Keitel had the cross with the shotgun and the stake. I love that scene.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
I mean,
am I allowed to
it's a
pick
fun
more
movie.
films in the future? I did a good job.
I believe this is the second film you picked because I feel like you also picked The Craft when we had you on last year.
Did I?
I think we picked The
You
Craft
picked it.
specifically for her.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe. All right, maybe.
Because you were the first person that came to mind on that one.
Yeah, I think you messaged me and you were like, "We're gonna do The Craft and we want you on," and I was like, "Absolutely."
Go check out that episode. But speaking of episodes, Josh, where can people find your book, your work, and your podcast?
I'm out there, fierce-lit.com. That's or fierceliterature.com if you want to spell it out. That's where you can find all my books. I'm going to be at New York Comic Con here in less than a month, selling books again. With me will be Alan, who also partners with me on our podcast, Brilliant But Lazy, where we talk about Marvel and all other kinds of nerddom and stuff like that. We need to get together. We've both been pretty busy lately and we haven't recorded anything, but yeah, you can find me out there. I'm all over the place.
And Zambies, where can people find you?
All over the internet in the chaotic spots. Yeah, I am a miniature artist and tabletop gamer. So if you're into nerdy stuff, I have hobby content on YouTube, and I stream Tuesdays and Thursdays during the day on Twitch. And Friday nights now for the spooky season, I also am exploring my love of voiceovers and narration. So I am reading stories, scary stories. I did Telltale Heart last Friday, and we are going to be doing more all Friday nights.
Fantastic.
And we'll provide a link in the show notes below for both of them. Mark, where can people find you?
Hanging out with you guys on here primarily.
Which is a great segue. Make sure that you guys check out Abyss Casing wherever you guys get your podcasts from. Billy, where can people find you?
You can find me at Letterboxd at VABoy99.
I'm also on Letterboxd at Captain Nostalgia, and you guys can follow our parent company, Victims and Villains. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and if you guys are feeling generous and want to support our mental health education efforts and get exclusive content like video versions of the podcast that you're currently listening to, go to patreon.com/victims and villains. And next week we are getting silly with our friends To Be a King. We're doing a double feature for the first time in 100 episodes, talking Terrifier 1 and 2. Until next time, remember, the longer that you gaze into the abyss, the more the abyss gazes back into you.